Hey, good morning, everybody. I apologize due to technical difficulties on my part. That's why we did not start when we should have. Okay, I'm short for time, so let's see what we can get done here. Perek Dala Mishna Zayin. Now, we have mentioned many times before a halacha that if, let's say, truma falls into chulin, that means into grain that already truma has been separated from, and truma falls into it. So when it gets mixed in, depending on the ratio of the chulin or the non-truma food to the truma, we said it's going to make a difference as to whether it nullifies it or not. And that's really what this whole Mishna is going to be discussing. And for a quick review, it's important to know that we are talking about here when truma got mixed into non-truma, they're both of the same type of thing. It's both grain, it's both the same kind of fruit, it's the same kind of thing. Now, typically, when something forbidden gets mixed into something permissible, if it's called a dry item with a dry item, which means they don't completely mix, then, according to the actual halacha, if you have the majority of permissible against the non-permissible becomes nullified by the majority. If we're talking about things that blend together, it's called lach balach, a liquid and a liquid, things that blend together, which don't have to necessarily be a liquid, but they blend together, you need 60 times more. When it comes to truma getting mixed into non-truma food, the sages instituted there's a greater stringency. So Mishna Zayin reads, Belezer says, Truma oila be'echad umeya. Truma comes up 1 in 100. If the ratio is one, let's say one sa'ah is a dry measure, one sa'ah of truma, falls into 100 sa'ah of non-truma, then we say that the halacha is the truma ayla, the truma comes up. That means we say if there's 100 times more, the truma becomes nullified. Nonetheless, you still have to separate a sa'ah, the amount of truma that fell in, to make sure that the Kohen doesn't lose out on the money that he deserved, that he actually had. Truma is considered the property of the Kohanim. So although the problem is when it gets mixed in, a non-Kohen may not eat it, and nullification takes care of that problem. Nonetheless, you still got to make sure the Kohen gets what he deserved monetarily. So therefore, if there's 100 times more, then we say it's nullified. Anybody can now eat from any of this grain. You've got to separate the amount of truma that fell in to begin with, which in the case of the Mishnah is a sa'ah, to make sure that he got what was rightfully his. So according to Belezer, if it falls into 99, it's not going to work. It's got to fall into 100 more of it. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, it's got to be, so it comes out at the end, as that according to Belezer, going back, it comes out that the truma comes up, meaning if you have a total of 101, you have a total of 101 sa'ah, 1 sa'ah of truma, and 100 sa'ah of chulin, then of non-truma, it's going to become nullified. The total only has to be 100 and a little bit more, which means according to Reb Yoshua, this is all revolving around a question of how to explain certain words in the Torah. The Torah basically lays out, again, we derive it from the Torah, but it lays out a situation that where the amount that falls in has to be a ratio, has to be similar to the amount of Trumas Meiser, which is 1 to 100. Okay, if you have Trumas Meiser, which is what you separate, the Levi separates from his tithing that he received and gives it to the Kohen. So basically, of the original grain, it's 1 100th because it's 1/10 of a tenth. So we derive from the Torah that if you have that kind of ratio, where you have 1 from 100, where that 1, which was the Trumas Meiser, falls back in, it's going to go ahead and forbid it. Which means if it's 1 to 99, it's forbidden. So that what should really mean, but if it's 1 to more than 99, it shouldn't be forbidden. So according to Belezer, you have to have a complete measure. That's why he says 101 sa'ah. Rabbi Yeshua says no. As long as it's 99 plus, it's 100 and a little bit more. You've gotten a little bit more than that, it's going to be enough to nullify it. And he says 100 plus, and the plus has no amount. It can be any amount whatsoever. Meshulam says, this more, kav l'meya sa'ah, means 1 kav to 100 sa'ah. shtus l'medamea, which is a sixth of the quantity that forbids the mixture. That means like this: a sa'ah is 6 kav. That's what it is. A sa'ah is 6 kav. So according to Reb Yossi, what you have to do is the amount that more than it is doesn't have to be a full sa'ah. It has to be a sixth of the sa'ah. It has to be a sixth of the amount that made the whole thing forbidden to begin with. That's what Rabbi Yosef Meshulam says. Rabbi Yosef Meshulam says that we find in different places the amount of shtus of a sixth is considered a significant amount, and therefore, although you don't need a full measure of a sa'ah, you need a sixth. You need a sixth of it, which comes out being a sixth of. You're going to need a sixth because a sixth is considered a significant amount. A sixth of what? A sixth of that original sa'ah, that original amount that fell in that made the whole mixture forbidden. If it comes in at the end from the whole mixture that you have 100 plus a sixth of 100, then the halach is going to be that it's going to become nullified. Okay? So therefore, right, you're going to come up if you have 100 plus a kav, which is a sixth of a sa'ah, then the halach is, then the law is it's nullified. Okay, I'm going to have to call it. Gonna have to end it right now. I apologize again for being late. Have a wonderful day.